Hi, I'm Don McPeak, and thank you for visiting my YouTube channel. In this lecture, we're going to explore a little further the whole notion of what to shoot. I know that's a broad topic. In fact, given the nature of the different types of potential students that might come to this course, it's almost impossible to try to cover everything in one lecture, especially one that's just a few minutes long. One important thing to consider is that in terms of what, why, and when, the what and the why are very connected. They're intimately related, and you almost can't have one without the other. So I'll kind of be cross-pollinating between the two. And the how is almost an output. This almost becomes an equation where what to shoot plus why you're shooting it equals how you're going to shoot it. So that's a little easier to address. Once you figure out what it is you want to shoot and why, then it just becomes an issue. It becomes a tactical, almost a physics equation to figure out how you're going to do it. But to kind of kick this off, what you're shooting is going to depend largely on why you're there. What are you doing at the event? What's motivating you? So we'll look at this from a standpoint of a spectrum or a continuum. On one end, you probably have a very large number of people who are beginners who may be looking to photograph their child at a sporting event. So they're on the sidelines at a soccer game or a football game, and their scope is very narrow. Okay, they're really only interested in taking pictures of their child, and that's it, and that's what they want to take pictures of. The other end of the spectrum is maybe not so much beginner level, but maybe it's a novice or intermediate level, where, maybe there's someone on a yearbook staff, or maybe a school newspaper or college newspaper, or maybe even shooting freelance for local newspaper. There's a different scope. It's not so confined in that situation. That what to shoot is probably opened up to many more players, many more different positions, different types of plays, different activities. So, you have this spectrum of very narrow and defined focus of one subject and maybe even one or two types of shots versus having to cover an entire team. Maybe you landed a gig to shoot a football game for a team. You can't focus on one player. You have to open it up. You have to consider all the different moms and dads who might want pictures of their child playing in the game. So, there's a variety of reasons that would dictate what it is you decide to shoot. So I'm going to show you some pictures to describe what I'm talking about. In this particular case, for another video platform, I was trying to demonstrate that you don't really need to have professional equipment to take good sports photos. It helps, of course, but I wanted to prove that point, so I went over to the local park, and within an hour I used a camera body that was 4 years old that you could buy for about $200. And I rented I guess what you would call a prosumer lens. It was an aftermarket Tamron lens I think I rented it for $75 for the week. Normally retails for, I don't know, a little over $1,000. So the point was that I could take that gear and produce some fairly nice photos. So I was after pictures on a couple different levels. I wanted to show that you could take reasonably good pictures with amateur gear. But then on another level, I wanted to take a particular type of picture or a couple different types of pictures. And I always like to focus in on the player's eyes. So what I was after that day was pictures of players engaged in dynamic activities, but also I wanted to get expressions, especially around the eyes and the different looks that they had. So in this series of pictures, you can see that it's very defined. I was after a certain thing. When I got there, I had a plan. I was looking for baseball and softball players, primarily pitchers and batters, and I wanted to get close-ups of their faces, their expressions, their eyes. So that, for me, was very well defined. Now, if you're on the end of the spectrum where you are just trying to take pictures of a particular subject, maybe it's your son, maybe it's your daughter, it's a brother, or who knows what, a neighbor, but it's a very narrow focus. You can look at this from a couple different levels. So I'm going to use the example of a mom or dad trying to get a picture of their son or daughter playing soccer. So if you're a mom or a dad and you're at your son or daughter's soccer game and you're trying to decide what to shoot, you're going to have to sort of dip into the why would I shoot that bucket for a little bit. So I will give you an example. A mom wants to get a picture of her daughter playing soccer, and her daughter is a midfielder. And so she wants to get pictures of action pictures of her daughter playing the sport that she loves, and she wants them to be good pictures, and that's fine. But I'm trying to take you one step further to another level that says it's not enough to just want to take better pictures of your daughter playing soccer. What's the real goal? And so in this fictitious example, this hypothetical mother going through this process finally comes to the realization that she actually wants a picture of her daughter heading the ball. That's what she really wants. So with that understanding, now we can figure out, okay, where does she need to be? What types of scenarios need to happen for her to get that shot? And then, why does she want that shot? Are there clues as to why she wants that shot that would help her understand what she's looking for, and when it unfolds, she'll recognize it? And so in this example, the reason she wants that shot is because she's 17 now, but when she was 10 and first started playing soccer, it took her 4 or 5 years before she would head the soccer ball. She was afraid of it. She wouldn't do it. And now she's overcome her fear, and she is fearless. She's out there butting heads and heading the soccer ball with the best of them. And that's a testament to her will to get better. So again, a fictitious example, but it's the thought process that counts here. So if you have that level of understanding about not only what you want to photograph, but why you want to photograph it, then you can really narrow your focus. Here's an exercise for you to engage in over the course of the next week or so. And it really relates to what I'm talking about here. When you approach an event and you have no idea what it is you want to photograph, how will you know it when you see it? There's a lot of things that happen during the course of the game that are flashing by, and in your subconscious, you're really not aware that they're happening because you haven't triggered your brain to look for them. Once you've triggered your brain, what you're looking for, and you've got that motivation and as to why you're looking for it, now all of a sudden your brain will start hunting. And I'll give you an example, and once you do this, you'll understand what I'm talking about. For the next week, be aware of how many burgundy-colored or maroon-colored pickup trucks or SUVs you see out on the road. You will be amazed how many you will notice. You will be equally amazed at how many you didn't notice until I mentioned it. That's the trigger that activates the part of your brain to look for that. So if you go into that soccer game and you have no idea what you want to shoot, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going to happen that you aren't going to recognize. If you go into that game and you're thinking, I want a shot of my daughter heading that soccer ball, it's going to happen a lot more times than you think. And as it does, as it unfolds, you're going to have a better shot of recognizing it and capturing it when it does. The way your brain works can either be an enabler or an inhibitor to your progress. It's an interesting scenario. You have this thing called a reticular activation system within your brain that allows you to expand your worldview, I guess, to create a replacement picture for yourself. Most people tend to gravitate toward what's their comfort zone. Most people don't like change. They don't like to stretch or challenge themselves. So I guess that's my message here, is that if you want to challenge yourself to get better, then you need to create a replacement picture for your own photography. And one of the ways to do that is to create an image or a vision of what the shots look like, what you want them to look like. So sometimes that's possible and sometimes it isn't. You're probably not going to get a shot of a 5-year-old upside down doing a Pele type kick back into the goal. That's probably not going to happen. But you can envision what that shot might look like of that 5-year-old dribbling the ball up the field. And then from there, you can decide from where you want to shoot it, what that needs to look like, even the facial expressions. So the point is, envision what you want the shot to look like beforehand, and you will have a much better chance of recognizing it when it unfolds in front of you. If you have no idea what you're looking for, then you have really no chance of recognizing. You have no idea of recognizing what that shot looks like when it happens. So getting back to our spectrum, obviously there's going to be different motivations for different people as to what they decide to take pictures of. So the other end of that spectrum is you're on assignment for a local paper, or you're shooting for a football team, or whatever. But the point is, you've got responsibility to cover a wide range of subjects or players or different types of plays. That's a lot more challenging. That requires a lot more dynamic thinking to capture all of the different elements of the game. And in many cases, that's reserved for the more experienced photographers. But you have to start somewhere. So my advice is if you're just beginning, if you're just starting out with this, do not try to boil the ocean. Don't take on the responsibility of trying to photograph an entire game or represent an entire team 2 weeks after you bought your camera gear. Learn how to use it first, of course, but then secondly, pick a few aspects of the game. If it's a football game, spend an entire game just photographing the quarterback. Learn the different ways that a quarterback does his job. Maybe it's baseball, maybe it's softball. Just concentrate on photographing a pitcher or a batter, or just the first baseman, the shortstop, whatever it is, master something. You'll continually learn no matter what you apply yourself to, but don't try to do all this at once. Just take a chunk, just little bite-sized chunks, and then eventually when you feel like you've gained a certain level of mastery over that one particular portion of it, move on to something else. And it doesn't mean that it's got to take 3 or 4 games. You might master photographing the quarterback in 1/2 or 1/4. Great. Kudos to you. Then move on to the next. Would concentrate on the running back or the linebacker, or photograph the lineman blocking, or maybe it's the setter in a volleyball game, or it's the point guard in a basketball game. But take it in chunks, learn as you go, and don't overlook the pregame warm-ups to hone your skills. There's lots of great activity that takes place there. There's no pressure. You're not missing anything in the game, but they're certainly going through the same paces, the same activities. It's a great opportunity to learn how to photograph in a non-stress environment, to prepare for those moments during the game when you really do have to be sharp. So anyways, I hope that helps you a little bit around what to shoot. Again, this is a beginner level, so I'm just trying to get you to think maybe beyond just showing up at a game and hoping to catch something interesting. If you have some idea before you get there what you're looking for, you're a whole lot more likely to recognize it just before it happens, and you'll have a better chance of capturing it. I'll see you in the next lecture.